Hi guys, welcome back. Thanks for joining me for another royal news video. This video is going to be a bit of a catch-up video from news that I missed last week. There is a few Harry and Meghan things. There's been some more video clips that have come out from Nigeria that you'll be interested in, and a big story that I spoke about at the end of the last video, but I'm going to stuff them to the end of the video because I feel like that we all need that palate cleanser. We need to hear about the real royals. So I'm actually going to start with someone I don't often start with today, and that is the Princess Royal. Princess Anne has made an appearance alongside her husband, Vice Admiral Sir Timothy Lawrence, as they held the Buckingham Palace annual garden party in conjunction with the Not Forgotten Association, which Princess Anne has been a patron of for a number of years. The garden party takes place annually and hosts ex-servicemen and women and serving personnel with disabilities, illnesses and injuries. They had over 2,000 attendees from all different services, including some D-Day veterans, and Princess Anne was actually asking them if any of them will be attending any of the big services that will be held in Normandy next month, because it is the 80th anniversary since the D-Day landings. Which brings me on to the next story. We have been notified that the King, Queen Camilla and Prince William will be attending various commemorative events across Normandy. Now, I think we are going to start seeing more joint engagements with the Prince of Wales and the King, which would be especially lovely after watching those two together at an engagement, a very special engagement that was held last week, where officially King Charles transferred over his role of Colonel-in-Chief of the Army Air Corps to his eldest son. His Majesty proudly held the position for 31 years, and it was a really wonderful moment as he handed this over to the new Prince of Wales.
So all I can say is that, having had the pleasure of knowing you for so long, I do hope you'll go from strength to strength in the future with the Prince of Wales as your new Colonel-in-Chief. The great thing is he's a very good pilot indeed, so that's encouraging. So let's have to look after yourselves, and I can't tell you how proud it has made me to have been involved with you all this time. Thank you.
Both His Majesty and the Prince of Wales are both fully qualified and very skilled trained pilots. Prince William, as we know, he worked for a number of years with the RAF Search and Rescue Ambulance Services in Wales, and he helped with his team carry out 156 search and rescue operations, which resulted in saving 149 lives. That's pretty impressive to have on his CV. I get rather bored of people saying, oh, well, Harry served in Afghanistan. Yes, he did, but he wasn't out there as a pilot. He was a co-pilot and a gunner, and Harry bragged about taking lives, whereas Prince William saved lives. Now, after the ceremony where King Charles obviously handed this over to his son, Prince William got changed. And can I just say, ladies and gentlemen, ding dong, that man looks absolutely fabulous and a little bit gorgeous in uniform. But that aside, one other thing that is incredibly striking with Prince William, especially when he smiles, is he is so much like his mother, Princess Diana. The nose, the eyes, the features, the way that they smile. He really is such a masculine, handsome looking man. And Diana was such a beautiful woman, but you can really see that he is his mother's son. It's truly unmistakable, and that's why I also found it laughable when Harry said William, as his age, no longer looks like our mother. And clearly that is so delusional because it's obviously not true. So let's move on to something that left the internet somewhat divided. I lost some followers on Twitter because of the painting. I don't like it. Hear me out. The painting, when it was unveiled by the artist and the King, Jonathan Yeo, is incredible. The size of it, the magnitude of it, the detail he went into on King Charles. It is by far the best portrait of King Charles's features I have ever seen. I even like the slight Mona Lisa smile he's given to the King because it shows the King's personality. It's not all serious and stoic. There's a warmth to it, and I think it's wonderful, and I love the added touch of the monarch butterfly. However, I don't like the red. It was way too much for me. For me, it almost looked like pictures where you have the devil with all of the hellfire behind it. It even gave me some Vigo the Carpathian vibes as well, the more that I was looking at it and I was thinking, who you gonna call? Everybody sees art differently, and whilst I can appreciate this piece of artwork and the skills and the talent that this artist has is phenomenal, and I can also appreciate that this looks so much like Charles. He's captured every single detail on his face. Unfortunately, his hands as well. I wish that wasn't such a main feature when you look at it from a distance, but it is a great portrait of him. But me personally, I just didn't like the red everywhere. For me, it looked like someone had come in like Just Stop Oil and thrown red all over it. It was just a bit too much. But hey, art is subjective. Everybody's allowed different opinions. Whilst I admit that some of you are probably going to be angry typing as I speak, please remember that obviously everybody is always allowed a different opinion. I can appreciate the talent. I just don't like that much red. Now, moving on from red, and let's keep talking about His Majesty because it's been a while. Let's talk about that His Majesty actually had a turn and a bow on the stage this week. But it was not in his honour, it was at a special gala to celebrate the music director Sir Antonio Pappano, who has stepped down from his role at the Royal Opera House after 22 years. His Majesty became patron of the Royal Opera House in 2009 and joined everyone on stage to take a bow at the end. A fitting tribute and royal send-off for the award-winning music director and pianist with over 700 performances alone at the Royal Opera House. What a truly incredible career, but also very deserving of the royal send-off that he received from His Majesty himself. Now, next story, let's talk about the Duke and Duchess of Edinburgh, who attended a special ceremony known as the Ceremony of Keys at Holyrood House Palace in Edinburgh. Sophie proudly looked on as her husband, Prince Edward, the Duke of Edinburgh, received the keys of the city. The ceremony takes place when the monarch or official representative makes any official visit to the city. And it's lovely seeing Sophie and Edward taking part in ceremonies like this because we saw many times of the Queen attending the same ceremony. Scotland had such a special place in both Queen Elizabeth's heart and of course Prince Philip. This is why it's been so nice for Prince Edward to take on his father's title, because Sophie and Edward were obviously very incredibly close with the Queen. And I love the fact that Sophie now has a title that Queen Elizabeth II held for an incredible number of years herself. As I said, Scotland was loved so much by Her late Majesty and Prince Philip as well, and I know that they're both looking down proudly at their son and daughter-in-law. And I have to say that the weather, for a change, held nice and strong all throughout. Now, thankfully, we are seeing a lot more coverage of Sophie and Edward. The newspapers, the photographers, we are seeing them at so many more events. They are officially taking up the mantle of being senior working royals. They've always done a lot of work behind the scenes, but now we are seeing this recognised. And the papers are spending more time reporting on them than the other two in Montecito. This is the only Duke and Duchess that I actually want to hear about these days. Sophie earlier this week had paid a visit to a charity in Manchester called the Seashell Trust. The charity helps young people with learning difficulties and disabilities to lead independent lives, and it was a patronage again held by Her late Majesty until her passing. I love that so many of Queen Elizabeth's patronages have been passed down to Sophie. She's such a lovely and compassionate person. You see it with every engagement that she does and on the faces of the people that she meets. No matter how many top photographers you take with you, no matter how much carefully crafted video footage that you release into the world. If someone is naturally caring and kind, you will see it. They do not need to tell you or to stage photographs or fake royal tours to prove it. Because as we've seen recently, it really actually shines a light on the fact that you are being fake. Harry and Meghan's fallout from the Nigeria tour is becoming more and more evident every single day. There are more stories that are coming out saying that Harry and Meghan weren't particularly nice to people. And also, I've said to you guys before, I normally leave it a couple of days after these two have done an event. The reason why is because you get to see real footage that is uploaded from people that are actually there, rather than the careful propaganda stuff that Harry and Meghan get released. And it really does paint a very different picture of those two. First up, we have got Harry being dragged across the basketball court by someone when he was at an event with Meghan. Watch this clip. Harry is literally being dragged across like he is a child, and you can tell he's not happy about it because he grabs the man's hand, and I think he must have pinched him or something to throw his hand off because the guy looks shocked as Harry does it, or maybe he was just like, oh yeah, sorry, I shouldn't have done that to you. But when the world is used to seeing Harry led around like a small child by his wife, it's hardly surprising that some people may think, oh, maybe that's just the way Harry likes to be treated. Speaking of which, another clip. Well, you remember these photographs that were taken where Meghan, it showed up that she was dressed yet again very inappropriately in a market stall beach dress. I'm gonna say that, it's nothing against the designer, but it did look like a cheap beach dress. It became all the more obvious that she was completely underdressed compared to how the women were dressed either side to her. But what is also more apparent with this clip is the fact that Harry asked Meghan to move out of the way so he can be in the photograph as well. And Meghan pushes him with her elbow and stands in front of him. Look at his face. Look at his face drop. Meghan's like, hell no, baby. They're here for me. You're in the back. Baby is officially in the corner, and he is more of his wife's shadow than he ever was his brother's. You've got to laugh at that, really, haven't you? At least when he was part of William and Catherine's world, when they were all together, they were seen as equals. He stood alongside his brother, and when Meghan first married into that family, Harry also used to stand alongside his wife. Those days are long gone. Now Princess Lolo is in the house, and she's not going to let him forget it. It's hardly surprising that he looked completely defeated as he trailed behind his wife as she stomped off when he was left carrying the bags. But I think Meghan would have been in a bad mood because obviously she was expecting nothing but glowing coverage. And then you had the fact that they were actually delinquent when they were out in Nigeria pledging all this money because they had not actually submitted their accounts or in fact paid the fees that were due. I can't imagine that Meghan coming back as Princess Lolo was happy to read headlines that Meghan and Harry's Archewell Foundation is delinquent. I'm sure there are several members of staff that probably got it in the neck at Archewell. But let's be serious. We know the way Harry and Meghan's work ethic is with everything that they do. They just take the money and then do nothing. They are not a productive couple whatsoever. So the fact that the accounts were delayed, I'm not surprised. But what I am shocked at is they have delayed them for a full year. They were meant to submit the accounts. They asked for an extension, which gives them an extension until November last year. They still didn't submit the accounts or again pay the fees. So technically, whilst they've now put out a statement telling the world that they have, of course, now paid it, and it was a small admin error because the cheque got lost in the post. That excuse might have worked in the 90s, but now in the modern day of banking, of backs payments, chaps payments, I find that absolutely laughable. It's up there with the dog ate my homework or my dog stood on a bee. The Attorney General had named them as being delinquent because they quite simply had not paid their bills or submitted their returns. They were banned from spending or raising money until it was resolved. Technically, it wasn't allowed. Now, whilst people are saying they're no longer delinquent, they've paid the bill and obviously got the governor of California involved in this. The point is that they let themselves remain delinquent for so long, and they probably would have continued. It's only because the media picked up the story, much like Harry trying to fight to get his security back, that they quickly go, shit, we better actually do this or pay the bills. But because they are so far behind with those bills, their current accounts are due now. So I'd imagine that they've quickly put in another extension to November again on top of this. Now, with them delaying their accounts so badly, you've got to start thinking to yourself, why? Why have they been this tardy in their returns? It's not something that you can just get away with, as they've quickly found out. And more eyes are on this couple because of their shady shenanigans than ever before. I'm just going to give you a quick recap on Archewell for the last couple of years. In their tax filings that were released in December last year, Archewell had had a loss of $11 million in donations compared to 2022. They had only recorded $2 million in charitable donations compared to $13 million in 2021. And I think that all of us with a brain cell know that that huge donor was probably Oprah for when they decided to rat out the royal family for a paycheck. What Oprah gave them was the equivalent to Judas and his 30 pieces of silver. So in 2021, they had a revenue of over 9 million. By 2022, they have recorded a loss of 674,000 due to their costs running into 2.6 million. Now, there was a French investigative team that went to the offices of Archewell. They found them to be little more than a shell company. There were no staff. There's an empty office, as it were. There was empty tables and chairs. But in effect, Archewell is just pretty much on paper. They've probably got a lot of people working from home. Given the way that Meghan probably treats her staff on a regular basis, I'd say that's possibly a close call for them. Now, the fact that they were on such an incredible loss just a year apart, it also became highly, I would say, noticeable, the fact that they gave the Archewell executive director, James Holt, a 280% salary increase from 2021. I can only imagine what Harry and Meghan pay themselves. Now, they don't do it, obviously, but they will basically recharge their lifestyle, their living expenses, the luxury travel, the hotels, the holidays, by putting it through it as expenses. Charity Watch has long since said that Archewell has inadequate governance and transparency. They only have 2 board members, and that's Harry and Meghan, which, when standard practice, is normally 5 to 7 board members and at least 3 directors. It's somewhat suspicious, is it not? Now, there is a very big reason why Harry and Meghan are late, very late, in doing their returns. They know how damaging it was last time for the fact that they had only spent, I think it was 2 million or 3 million, and they kept the remaining 10 million. And they said that they were keeping it for future projects, and also seeing the expenses and the fact that they were suddenly in the red, yet here they were living a luxury lifestyle. It was quite glaringly obvious to people that Harry and Meghan are perhaps using that foundation for a little bit of a side skimming lifestyle as well. As I said, they wouldn't be the first, they won't be the last, but the fact is that these two were so desperate to cover it up, they got Gavin Newsom involved. He is the governor of California. He came out on TV and spoke about the Archewell organisation.
Archewell Foundation do extraordinary work, particularly women and girls, but notably around mental health. It was a very typical technical issue around paperwork that persists for so many others as well, and they're in full compliance, and they're a celebrated organization that does great work in the state of California. So I want to clarify that because that's important, and I just thought there was a little bit of a piling on that was deeply unfair.
If it was just an unfair pile-on, well, why are you not defending all of the other companies then that have also done the same? They're late with their returns and they haven't paid their bills. They're classed as delinquent by your own office, your Attorney General. So why on earth was he speaking at an event and defending Harry and Meghan so publicly? Is that where the remaining 30 jars of Meghan's jam went to? Or is Gavin himself trying to get people to look the other way and he's hoping that it might take some heat off of him? Because he's been getting some flack as well because of billions of American US dollars has somewhat disappeared into a black hole. From the homelessness crisis that has hit California with over 180,000 people counted in 2023, his office spent over 20 billion in the last 5 years to supposedly tackle it. Now, I'm obviously not sticking my nose into American politics. Our country's got enough of its own problems as it is. But you would think, given that, Gavin Newsom would have better things to be doing with his time rather than defending Harry and Meghan and their new foundation when no one can quite clearly work out exactly what it is that they actually do. But what he's done now, it's being seen as somewhat of a political intervention with their charitable organisation. He's the governor of California. What on earth is he doing speaking out publicly, defending them? He's hitched his wagons to them now. So if at any point Harry and Meghan do suddenly get caught out perhaps of Archewell not operating, I would say, with a clean whistle, he's going to find himself going down with them. Because given the company that they have kept in Nigeria, this is going to be one of many icebergs that their ship is going to hit along the way because Harry and Meghan Meghan are careless. They are careless with who they associate with, and they will take freebies off of anyone. Because a certain gentleman who was part of the welcoming party, when they specifically went to Lagos, they got a free ride off of this man's airline, wanted in the US for over 20 million in a money laundering scandal and bank fraud. Now, naturally, he has said that he is completely innocent and he has never done anything wrong. But it looks like that the US government seem to think otherwise. Dr. Alan Onyema was part of their welcoming party, but he is the CEO of Air Peace Airline, who Harry and Meghan accepted a free flight from and who subsequently announced, well, their company announced, that they are now royally approved. Harry and Meghan have naturally gone on the defence, and the Daily Mail reports that they have turned around and said, oh, well, they weren't originally going to fly with him, but then it was something that happened last minute. Yeah, like we believe that one. It's only because the guy's been found out, or rather perhaps they've been found out taking freebies from a man that is a US fugitive. This man set up lots of companies, right, to set up a money laundering front. Given the number of companies that Harry and Meghan have set up in the secretive state of Delaware, it makes me think, perhaps they got some tips off him. And he wasn't even the only one. A Nigerian king that came to welcome Meghan as an honorary noble daughter, who Harry called as one of his in-laws, well, he's a deported con man. Yes, deported yet again from the US, not once but twice. He's pictured here with Harry and his wife, the rather beautiful Queen Firdaus. Harry and Meghan accepted several gifts of the couple, and he gave her the name Adeto Kunbo, which means royalty from across the seas, as he also said to Meghan, "Thank God you are one of us." I'm presuming that he meant Nigerian and not a con artist. I'm not saying that they are involved in any sort of criminal activity, but there is definitely guilt by association, as we've seen many people apply it to other members of the royal family and other people that get caught up in these sort of shenanigans. This is why they need the staff to be able to check exactly who it is that they are going to be swanning around with. People often say the expression birds of feather flock together. Harry and Meghan need to start being a hell of a lot more careful. If they thought that getting Gavin Newsom involved would detract from the negativity that's coming out from obviously this tour of Nigeria, if anything, I think that his association with them, the fact that he is the governor of California and he has stuck his head above the parapet and defended them, it's had the Streisand effect. It's now making people look more closely because people are questioning why? What's the connection? Why on earth has he defended two private citizens and their so-called charitable foundation? Because Harry and Meghan really need to start being a lot more careful with who they choose to associate with, or rather, more importantly, who they take freebies off. Their scruples seem to somewhat get a bit, in the grey area when money is involved. It reminds me of Harry's uncle. But not only that, you have the fact that they have set up over 11 companies now in Delaware, including Archewell, which is meant to be a charitable foundation. They set it up there so they get to keep 95% of donations and they only have to give 5% away. And not only that, they don't have to give such detailed returns. It's making people suspicious that perhaps Harry and Meghan are up to a little bit more than just selfless good deeds. And as I said, the Streisand effect has certainly happened because the more that these two get themselves into situations like this, they give ridiculous excuses. The check was lost in the mail. They've got someone influential who is also political, Gavin Newsom, to defend them. It's making people look all the more closer. So guys, tell me your thoughts. This, as I said, has got a little bit of everything in it. What do you think about the painting? And do you think that Harry and Meghan's true mission is just to show up and do good? Or do you think it's more about increasing their bank accounts? Love to hear your thoughts, and I will be back with you very soon. Have a wonderful week. Bye.